Have you ever wondered what makes a great leader, especially in a place as ancient and powerful as the Vatican? We often think of spiritual leaders as humble servants, but what if the very qualities that help someone rise to the top of such a massive institution are more complex, and perhaps more troubling? Today, we're rediving deep into a fascinating and sensitive topic: the psychology of power within the Vatican and the potential intersection of leadership with narcissistic traits. This isn't about pointing fingers or making accusations. Instead, it's an exploration of human psychology in one of the world's most unique environments. We'll look at the psychological framework of narcissism, examine historical patterns, and discuss the profound impact this can have on millions of faithful followers and the church itself. So, if you're ready for a thought-provoking journey into the corridors of power, stay with me. To understand this complex dynamic, we first need to get a handle on what narcissism actually is, especially in a leadership context. It's not just about vanity or taking a lot of selfies. Psychologically, narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD, is a spectrum. On one end you have healthy self-confidence, but on the other, you find a pervasive pattern of grandiosity, a constant need for admiration, and a lack of empathy for others. In leadership, these traits can be a double-edged sword. A narcissist's charm, charisma, and unwavering self-belief can be incredibly persuasive. They can inspire people and drive massive projects forward with seemingly unstoppable energy. They often present a vision so compelling that people are naturally drawn to it. They're masters of public perception, carefully crafting an image of perfection, wisdom, and authority. However, the dark side is always lurking. This need for admiration means they can't handle criticism. Any challenge to their authority is seen as a personal attack. Their lack of empathy means they might exploit others to achieve their goals, viewing people as pawns in their game rather than as individuals with their own needs and feelings. They create an environment where loyalty is paramount, but it's a one-way street. You're expected to be loyal to them, but they feel no such obligation in return. So, when we talk about narcissistic traits in leaders, we're talking about this complex mix of dazzling charisma and a potentially destructive internal world. Now, let's place this psychological framework within the historical context of the Vatican. For centuries, the papacy and the church hierarchy have been structured in a way that can, unintentionally, attract and reward certain personality types. Think about it. It's a system built on absolute authority, divine right, and a rigid pyramid structure. To ascend this ladder requires immense ambition, political skill, and an unshakable belief in one's own destiny and importance. Throughout history, we've seen popes and cardinals who were more princes than priests. Take the Renaissance, for example. Popes like Alexander VI from the Borgia family were infamous for their political maneuvering, nepotism, and lavish lifestyles. While they were patrons of incredible art, their leadership was often driven by personal power and family legacy rather than spiritual guidance. Their court was a hotbed of intrigue and competition, where loyalty was bought and sold. Fast forward through the centuries, and while the overt displays of wealth might have lessened, the core structure remains. The system demands a certain kind of personality to navigate its complex internal politics. The emphasis on tradition, infallibility, and a top-down chain of command can create an environment where questioning authority is discouraged. This can foster a culture where leaders are rarely challenged, allowing any potential narcissistic traits to go unchecked. The very pomp and circumstance surrounding high-ranking officials, the elaborate robes, the titles, the rituals all serve to elevate them, creating a distance between them and the average person. This separation can reinforce a sense of grandiosity and specialness, key components of a narcissistic mindset. So, history shows us that the Vatican structure has, at times, created a fertile ground for leaders whose ambitions might have overshadowed their spiritual duties. Let's move from the general to the specific, by looking at some case studies. For obvious reasons, we'll talk in terms of archetypes and anonymized examples, but these are based on well-documented behaviors within church history. Consider the archetype of the reformer. This is a high-ranking official who comes to power with a grand vision for changing the church. Initially, he's hailed as a hero. He's charismatic, speaks eloquently about transparency and justice, and promises to root out corruption. People are drawn to his energy and his seemingly righteous cause. But over time, a different pattern emerges. His reforms often centralize more power in his own hands. Anyone who questions his methods, even if they agree with his goals, is labeled an enemy of progress, disloyal, or part of the old guard. He surrounds himself with a tight circle of absolute loyalists who echo his every word, creating an echo chamber that insulates him from reality. His public persona remains one of a humble servant, but behind closed doors, he's known for his explosive temper and his inability to accept any form of dissent. The focus shifts from the reform itself to the veneration of him as the reformer. Another archetype is the theologian prince. This is a figure known for his towering intellect and theological writings. He's revered for his wisdom and seen as a guardian of orthodoxy. His sense of superiority, however, is intellectual. He dismisses any theological viewpoints that differ from his own as simple-minded or heretical. He engages in public debates not to find truth, but to intellectually dominate and humiliate his opponents. His followers admire his brilliance, but those who work with him describe an environment of fear. He uses his position to sideline or silence other scholars, ensuring that his own intellectual legacy is the only one that endures. In both these cases, we see the core narcissistic dynamic, a public image of greatness that masks a private reality of control, a lack of empathy, and an insatiable need for admiration. The mission of the church becomes secondary to the personal aggrandizement of the leader. So what is the actual impact of this kind of leadership on the church and its followers? The effects are profound and damaging, often creating ripples that last for generations. Internally, within the institution, a narcissistic leader fosters a culture of fear and sycophancy. Talented and honest individuals who might challenge the leader's narrative are either pushed out or learn to stay silent to survive. This creates a brain drain of critical thinkers, leaving a vacuum filled by the organization becomes less adaptable, less open to new ideas, and more focused on protecting the leader's image than on fulfilling its actual mission. Decision-making becomes flawed because it's based on the leader's whims and desires, not on objective facts or compassionate consideration. For the followers, the impact can be devastating to their faith. When a leader who preaches humility, service, and love is later revealed to be driven by ego, power, and a lack of empathy, it creates a deep sense of betrayal. This is known as institutional betrayal. People don't just lose faith in the individual, they can lose faith in the entire system that enabled them. It can lead to cynicism, disillusionment, and people walking away from the church altogether. They start to question everything they've been taught. If this leader was not what they seemed, who else isn't? What else is a lie? Furthermore, a narcissistic leader often prioritizes the reputation of the institution over the well-being of individuals. We've seen this tragically in the handling of abuse crises, where the primary goal was often to manage public relations and avoid scandal, rather than to protect victims and hold perpetrators accountable. This is a classic example of a lack of empathy, where the pain of individuals is deemed less important than the preservation of the leader's and the institution's pristine image. The long-term consequence is a deep erosion of trust, which is the very foundation of any spiritual community. In conclusion, the intersection of spiritual leadership and narcissism is a deeply complex and uncomfortable topic, but a necessary one to explore. We've seen how the psychological profile of a narcissist, with its mix of charm and a need for control, can be a potent force in any leadership structure, including the Vatican. The history and hierarchy of the church itself can, at times, create an environment where these traits are not only present, but can even be rewarded. Through archetypal case studies, we see how this dynamic plays out in reality. With reformers who centralize power and theologian princes who demand intellectual submission, the impact is undeniable: a toxic internal culture, a loss of talented individuals, and a deep betrayal of the faithful who rightly expect their leaders to embody the virtues they preach. This isn't to say that all leaders in the Vatican are narcissists. That would be a gross and unfair oversight. Many are genuinely devout and humble servants. However, by understanding the psychological risks inherent in any system of concentrated power, we can be more discerning. It encourages us to look beyond the charismatic facade and judge leaders by their actions, their empathy, and their true impact on the lives of others. True spiritual authority isn't found in grandiosity and power, but in humility, compassion, and authentic service. Recognizing this is the first step toward fostering healthier and more trustworthy leadership in any institution. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. If you found this analysis interesting, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that explores the intersection of psychology, history, and power. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going. Thanks for watching.